mom and his 13-year-old daughter and an elderly couple. He was convinced that they were tormenting him, that they had a weapon. They were tormenting him with V2K. As you know, the government criminals that run this program have the means to replicate the voice of other people and play it in your, in your head. So, and let me make this disclaimer. I do not think that victims of V2K are violent people, by no means. I think that the people in Ohio are being targeted more than in the rest of the nation, or perhaps they are being more violently targeted. I think that the experiment there is on steroids. And that's why I think that this should be closely looked at. Okay. I am an admirer of all of you out there that have V2K like you, Len, and that can overcome the atrocious torture that it entails. Okay. So I just want to make that disclaimer, and that we do not, Targeted Justice does not advocate in any way violence. But I want to play this clip because it's very important to sometimes see ourselves in blaming the neighbor for the microwave weapon that this man went to find and didn't find there. Go ahead, Len.
Dad, Kevin, Carrie, Brendan, I just want you to know I love you more than you will ever know. I could not have asked for a better family. What you cannot comprehend is that we have been attacked by this weapon our entire lives, and the attack against me personally is one of the most vicious attacks a human being has ever faced. I have tolerated the most inhumane torture in hopes that the FBI and CIA would come to my defense, but they have failed to come to my aid. My only hope is that you come to understand what has happened here. When the world realizes what has happened, there will be justice, but I cannot sit by and be a victim any longer, and I refuse to sit by and do nothing while my nieces and nephews and the rest of my family are operated on with mind control. Our thoughts are not private. It is disgusting and it is cruel. I will be launching the first counterattack against mind control in human history. I want to be very clear, this will not be an active shooting event. I will be executing some of the people responsible for activating shooters. If I happen to survive, please visit me in prison, if only to see the same man you have always known, rather than the victim of some mental disorder that does not exist. What you may not understand is that I will gladly die to expose this, and I will gladly die to help one other victim discover the truth of what has happened. If I can help another targeted individual fight back against telepathy, then the sacrifice will be well worth it. To any TIs who read this, understand that your attackers use the form of ventriloquism I describe in the paper to move your thoughts, but your thoughts can also move their mouths. To my friends in Chicago, Lexington, Dayton, and all over the world, get this email out to everyone you know. The most horrific weapon ever made is being used on human beings, and if you ever learn the truth, you will understand what I did here to protect myself and my family. Get this out to other TIs, other voice hearers, so the world has a chance to fight back. To my family, especially my nieces and nephews, I want you to understand that what I do here, I do for your future, and hope that you can live a life free of mind control. I love you guys.
Okay, so he went, as he said, and executed the mother, the 13-year-old daughter, the elderly couple. He went into their houses. He did not find the microwave weapon that was broadcasting the telepathy and the ventriloquism and all of that, because we know that it's not there. This man was placed on the TSCB. He was made a targeted individual. He was attacked with voice to skull through, we are very clear on the fact that it is the people at Shrevers and the CIA doing this torture. I believe that he was entrapped in the sense that he was driven to madness or to doing these heinous crimes, because in the criminal world, we talk about a temporary insanity. When somebody carries out these heinous crimes, we talk about a moment of a temporary insanity. Okay, I'm not his attorney, but I would definitely invoke something like that, right? So, and then they go and say, oh, in custody, right? So I say, the FBI not only framed this man, but by placing him by making him a targeted individual, the FBI is responsible for his victims. Because, but for this V2K that drove him to these atrocious acts of violence, these people would be alive today. And that's what I have to say. We do not condone violence. We do not condone any kind of, taking law into your, just revenge like this. And we just want people to understand that it is not your neighbor doing V2K on you or the microwave on you. They could be gang stalking you. That's another thing. That's not a microwave. Okay.
If I may add a personal observation, I saw this video and I saw the absolute dedication to end this inhumane torture, and then how misguided his actions were. And that is the saddest thing. So I hope nobody is misguided. Not everybody should understand what's going on to the very technical details, including that your neighbors are not doing it, that it is done centrally, it is done in the way so you would think that your neighbors are doing it, and your attempt to correct it are misguided. Please don't be misguided. Be educated. Thank you for this, Anna.
You're welcome. And also, please go to the technology tab in targetedjustice.com. Go to the technology tab, the V2K tab, and it's very well explained there. Okay, this one is recent. And the curious thing about this is a father that purportedly executes his entire family. And nobody says that there were problems in this family. And then he commits suicide. The police chief says the kids were found in the bedrooms, parents in theirs. He says it's the worst thing in 23 years, the worst thing he's ever been a part of. Okay. So we're seeing kind of crimes that he hadn't seen in 23 years. And he says the department didn't have any indication there was something going on with the family. Okay. When the officers talked to the neighbors, everybody said that everything appeared to be fine. So, and at this point, I want to, for those of you interested, you should look out for Charlie, his YouTube channel. He has a lot of very good videos on subliminal messaging. If this man was not a victim of V2K, he could have had severe subliminal messaging, which, so look out for Charlie. He separates the audio in just ambient noise, and you can distinctly hear the violent messages like take him out, and it's real. And this is being conducted through cell towers. Okay, so the interesting thing about this news, massacre is that after August 27, you cannot find a single news article about it. A murder, a full family murdered. And after August 27th, nothing. So it's just as if it didn't happen. Okay, so that was also in Ohio, in Uniontown, Ohio. Let's go to the next one. This was 2021. This man beat to death his 5-year-old autistic son. Baseball bat. After hearing voices, according to the 911 call. This was a call. What's the problem? Tell me exactly what happened, the female dispatcher asked. I just killed my son. Ponomarenko replies. What do you mean you just killed your son? And he says, I'm hearing voices. This was 2021. Okay, so in the next slide, you have the little angel. And then he then described how he fatally beat his son with a baseball bat, leaving his lifeless little body on the living room floor. The father had been recently released from a behavioral health center and was not taking his medication. We all know that medication for schizophrenia does not in any way affect or eliminate V2K because it's not an illness. And so he says, my mom dropped him off today. He was vibrant, completely content. And all of a sudden he gets hit with all this, which is also an indication, because if he was okay, You don't immediately, when you get mental illness, you don't just like all of a sudden get it, you know? It takes a while. So clearly there's just something wrong with that picture. The next slide, 2019, Connor Betts. He slaughtered 9 people, including his sister, in the nightlife district in Dayton. All of these are in Ohio. A former girlfriend said he talked often about dark, evil things he was hearing. He would hear voices. Okay. He just went on a shooting spree, which I think, I really believe that if we look up in the TSDB, all those shooters, mass shooters, it is very likely we're going to find them there. And probably all of them are victims of V2K. But time will tell. Next one, Anthony Sowell, 2011, murdered 11 people. Raped, killed, stored, and buried 11 women. He told police he suffered blackouts and heard voices in his head. He said he would often black out and was not able to remember what happened. I thought I was like a ghost. It might sound silly. Nobody else could have did it. That's not a typo. It's how he spoke. And he told police he sometimes heard bad voices in his head. Murdered 11. The next one, 2005, Charles McCoy, 29. He was deemed paranoid schizophrenic. He pleaded guilty in 2005 to involuntary manslaughter, and 10 other charges for a series of highway shootings. He admitted firing the shots in 2003 and 2004 because of quiet, mocking voices in his head. And here I have to talk about these attorneys that these people had that didn't look into what the clients were telling them. Whether it is a temporary insanity, whether it is looking into the torture, well, this was in 2005. It wasn't well known about the targeting program yet. But it's certainly, that's why I emphasize people today, if you're a targeted individual and you're accused of a crime, you certainly have to insist on getting your FBI file, even if it's not a federal crime, because it's likely that they have a dossier on you because you're on the TSDB. Next one is George Wagner IV. He murdered 8 people in supposedly a custody battle over a toddler. It's just so gruesome. The scene is just so gruesome that it had to be either V2K or subliminal messaging. It's a normal human being is not capable of killing, the crime scene found a 4-day-old baby slain next to his slain mother. That child and a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old survived. But he killed children, grandparents, the mother of the kids. He was charged of multiple counts of aggravated murder. This one also heard, he called himself an angel of the neighborhood. And he burned down the house. The next one, his name is Stanley Ford, also in Ohio, all of them. He was convicted of murdering 9 people in 3 separate fires in 2016, between 2016 and 2017. The last one, 7 people were killed, including 5 children. He believed the occupants of that house were gamblers, alcoholics, and homosexuals. Where did he get that? I mean, it was 5, mom, dad, and 5 kids, okay? Most of the people that died were children. They were not gamblers, alcoholics, or homosexuals. And the neighbors dismissed him as creepy, weird old fellow. He lived right next to one of the houses that he set on fire. Go to the next slide so you can see the house. The children were all found dead close to one of the windows trying to escape. And he claimed he was an angel sent from God to protect his neighborhood. Again, if this is not either subliminal messaging or V2K, I don't know what is. Okay, but he instead killed those he didn't like, said the prosecutor. So here, this is my conclusion for this section, which is I really believe that if these people, at least the ones that we know for sure, are hearing V2K, like Marlo, they were placed on the TSDB. As a consequence of it, they were tortured with V2K and they were driven to these crimes. We don't know the intensity of their torture. I really believe that the relatives of these victims have a cause of action against the government criminals that torture these people, as well as those that put them in the TSDB.
Developed in Seattle utilizes emotion manipulation and behavior manipulation without the gang stalking and without the voice to skull aspects. And so this use of the technology can be done very covertly to the point where the person it's being used against will not know that this technology is being used against them. And that is one of my main concerns and one of the reasons why I want to bring more light to this technology and to this issue, because this technology could potentially be being used against tens to hundreds of millions of Americans every day. I mentioned in some of my podcasts how there are field effects where they will not direct this technology at an individual, but create a general field of frequency in a geographical area so that everybody that within that geographical area is feeling the effects of the technology. It's more of a general application of the technology instead of an individual specific application of the technology. But when you consider that use of it and the fact that it is used for emotion and thought and behavior modification, then we could potentially be looking at many, many millions of people across the country that are under the influence of the technology today, right now. And so what they can do is within this general field, they can broadcast a frequency that affects human beings within that frequency field and can induce a general mood of, let's say, happiness or sadness, anger, agitation, peacefulness. And in this way, they can have an overall effect in the city. And I have seen this done, and it is remarkable how effective it is, because you will walk down the street of Seattle and literally see people all in a bad mood, all at the same time, and they do not know each other. And then you go over a block or two to a different office building and you walk in and the exact same thing's going on there. It's very, very concerning. So within that then, that overall bubble or area of frequency where everybody, let's say, is in a bad mood, they can still inject what would be a individual specific frequency to the targeted individual themselves. Let's say the homeless person in Seattle that's being experimented on 24 hours a day. So they will be under the influence of the general agitated mood or bad mood that everybody else is in, and then they can more further be manipulated by the frequency that's being directed solely at them. It can literally stop your own thoughts from happening and replace them with other thoughts by sending thoughts to your head. And it's so sophisticated that you cannot tell where these thoughts are coming from. There's no way to discern that they're coming from somewhere other than your own mind. So you can imagine how bad this would be for people that don't even realize this technology exists.